Well, howdy do, and welcome to another episode of Hush Hush Taboo Talks with Shay and Juju. I'm Juju.
And I'm Shay.
This episode is, I tried to think of a way to put it briefly, but sometimes, I was telling you, sometimes it just is what it is.
Right.
I'm referring to my note because I said it perfectly before. It's deep. And it might require more than one, but we're going to take our time with it.
Okay.
It's multiple layers.
Let's do this. That's what we do on Hush Hush. We talk deep talks.
We got to put the taboo in taboo talks, do we not?
Right.
I want to say safeguarding yourself in the midst of spiritual warfare. So it's like, now we're going into the undertow.
Right.
I wanted to start by referring to two of the posts that we posted on our IG, hush underscore podcast on IG. One of which is, what we take to be normal in our society is both unhealthy and unnatural. Dr. Gabor Mate, who a good friend of mine put me on to. Thank you, girl. And then the second quote is, accomplishment is socially judged by ill-defined criteria, so that one has to rely on others to find out how one is doing. So they kind of go hand in hand. The fact, like, that's an unhealthy and unnatural agenda or conditioning.
Right.
So I was thinking, I always meditate on this because this is part of the project that I did when I had to graduate. I had to write when I graduated from Purchase. And in your dreams too, it affects you. But I feel like this comes down to systems and how we how we process them, not necessarily internalizing them. And if you're sensitive like me, you don't want to do that. You can fall into down a rabbit hole that you don't want to go down. But awareness without detriment, awareness. You can be an empath without being negatively affected and consumed by things. So I guess my point is how to bolster your sense of what's your shit and what's not.
Right.
And how to only deal with the now. Only deal with your now.
Right.
Like with
the present.
In the midst of knowing all these things.
Right.
What say you?
I think we had a brief discussion about it, last week. I was saying that, being woke, you know what the term is.
Enlightened?
Enlightened, thank you.
Right.
Being enlightened to certain things that other people don't know about puts you in a more vulnerable position mentally. Because I feel like we know more than the average person. And if you ever seen They Live, we have a whole segment on They Live. Go check it out on our podcast. It's literally about becoming enlightened in ways, and some people just don't want to become enlightened. Some people don't want to wake up.
Right. And
I feel like the people who are in 5D, that knows what's going on, that knows certain things around them and are knowledgeable on certain things that's hidden from the public, are the ones that suffers the most mentally. And for me, I stay away from, because I know certain things are true, so conspiracy theories that we speak on, and certain things that's true.
And conspiracies, things that are actually real that aren't theory anymore.
Right. Conspiracy theories. Right.
Well, they call them theories until they're proven.
Right. But they will never prove some of them because they don't want you to know the truth.
Right.
But certain topics and certain truths that other people know, it can cause depression. I feel like I stir away from it. I used to be the girl that, follow all kinds of the woke pages. And they saying, be prepared, stack up your fridge. Right. America's doing this, America's doing that. Just like with the money thing, just like with COVID, just like it's always something. It's always propaganda. Is that what you call it? Is it propaganda?
For sure.
In a sense that trying to stir up anxiety amongst the people, fear amongst the people, and you have to have a certain amount of discernment to be like, okay, I know what's going on, but I'm not gonna let that affect me mentally. And spiritually, mentally, physically, warfare. Anything.
Yes, energetically.
Overall, right. You cannot let it affect you. And I used to be, like I said, I used to be like that. I used to see certain things and I'm like, oh my God, The panic, what's going on? Da-da-da. I don't be like that. I don't watch the news no more. If I hear about it, I hear about it. I know what's going on. I believe me, I see it. But I don't need to sit there and watch it 24/7 to know what's going on, to indulge in it and be a sponge in this negative. Because everything on the news is 95% negative and 5% positive.
And we know
you'll see like hey, this girl got a scholarship to a college 1 minute, and then the rest is you might.
But we know that so many of those stories happen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And we're doing a lot. Or like we in general are doing a lot of the good. But
and then
just want to point that out.
85% of the time out of the 95% is a person of color they put in the picture to try to create this fictitious light upon where criminals were this or that. So like I said, I stay away from
those narratives.
Yeah.
And it is a narrative. It's presented a certain way, and it's the same things. And then the more you divide, like George Orwell said, they use fear because they can't control love and understanding.
Of course.
So love is the pinnacle frequency.
Right.
So, and I feel like love is radical non-judgment, radical acceptance of everything.
Right.
Good, bad, and those are constructs too. But some things are just evil because they are low down dirty, and they make you feel, and they go against life and proliferation and uplift and what feels good. I feel like if it feels good to do good, then do that. It should feel good to do good is what I'm saying. Trying to say.
Right. And don't be a part of the program. If that makes sense.
Programming.
Yeah.
Those TV programs that they call programs.
Programs is for a reason.
My mom would say, I would listen to a bunch of underground podcasts and different alternative news that were conspiracy theory-esque, and a lot of them they had PhDs on who were researching this, and they were masters. They did 10,000 plus hours in this, so they were 98% right. They were the authority, and they were saying the truth, which didn't at all align with the media perspective or the media, the story.
Right.
And then I just like you said, you get depressed, you get anxious. And then my mom was like, well, then don't listen to it. It's really, it was really that simple. I fell down a rabbit hole. I was working a job that was very toxic. So I only had maybe you get 7-8 hours to yourself at home. And if you're lucky, all of that is sleeping. And it's probably not. So most of my day, which meant most of my life, was around toxicity. And then I was listening to these podcasts.
That made it worse.
And I'm like, curiosity killed the cat, all those leaves in my chart. So I'm like, but then I'm like, thank God.
Right.
I have about 36 lives because I'm so damn curious. But anyway, now I'm like, the less you know, the better. And I don't mean ignorance is bliss. I just mean the less I know that's going to be a hindrance to me, the better.
Right. I mean, you can know. You can acknowledge what's going on, but don't take it in.
And don't be of it.
Don't be of it, and don't consume it. So don't be a sponge, is what I'm
consumption.
saying. Yes, that's
in
another
reference to our last episode.
Go
one
watch.
of our last episodes, yeah.
So go watch They Live in Consumption. They're talking about both. And it's a matter of what you consume, like we were speaking of, what you consume on TV, what you consume. So that's one of my things to protect my spiritual part of me is limit myself to what is good and what is bad. So I'm limiting myself to both, because good or bad, it could be, what's good in your perception, it could be bad in mine. So I limit myself into what makes me feel good, period. And if that means eliminating things on social media, eliminating certain things that I watch, I read this book. And if you guys are interested in it, go read it.
An intellectual one. Yes, come on with it.
It made me woke to the point that I was like, whoa, like what is going on in this world? It's A Pale Horse. That's in it. Beyond a Pale Horse. I don't know. I do not really know the title of the author, but when you put Beyond a Pale Horse, I'm sure it will come up. And it's a bunch of theories, a bunch of conspiracies that the government is hiding from everyone, basically. And certain things we all know about. Girl, we've been knowing about that.
Right.
But it's certain things that will bring certain issues to the light for you. But like I said, you read the book, you sit on it, and then you let it go. You don't let it consume you to the point that's like, damn, I'm scared now. I'm anxious now. Because that used to be me. Now I could read a book and I could be like, oh, this just confirmed what I was just talking about, and then let it go. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, girl, you know what? Oh my God, we got to get ready because Russia's doing this or this country is doing this.
And that anxiety ain't serving nobody.
No, that's not gonna be that's not gonna be my reality. I'm not gonna sit up here and let the media create my mental status
and your reality.
In my reality. That's not gonna
ultimately. I agree with that. And that's the thing. It's so like when I started off the quotes with, they're unhealthy and unnatural, and it's normal. And then because of capitalism and other things, what your achievements are, whether you're a social media presence, whether you bag groceries, I did that too. You know, any host of things, doctor, nurse, lawyer, you're judged by your peers or your superiors. And if you're not popular enough, if it's not unanimous enough that you're good, then you're not.
Right.
And you're doing the same work.
Right.
And then there's all these people, I think Einstein or somebody said, imagine all these people who are smarter than I and are more productive than I, who don't have the means to practice and to be put out there, and they don't have benefactors, and so they just go unnoticed.
Right.
Or they die prematurely.
Right.
So, I feel like, so it's an ongoing thing. So safeguarding yourself against these things, I laugh. I want to laugh all the time. I find that the Bible says that too.
Laughter is joy.
It's the medicine to the body. And I think I know it's natural. That's a perfectly reasonable response to the ridiculous is laughter. And it's ridiculous, like what they try to put forth as truth. You know, it's ridiculous. So you got to laugh at it. And of course the yoga and the meditation. And if y'all have been watching, then y'all know enough to know that I do that, you know, while listening to Sade and others.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. How do you safeguard?
You know what? I feel like to connect to your highest power, whatever that may be, in terms of faith, and in terms of having that faith, you have that protection.
Right.
And if it's Buddha, if it's Jesus, if it's Allah, if it's the universe, whatever you connect to it.
Or all of them.
Or all of them.
Some of them.
Or
right.
the universe, or unite, all in one.
Right.
You know, so I feel like connect to your highest power, focus on your faith, and focus on your protection, and you'll be all right. And I feel like once you connect that to your highest self, rarely anything can phase you. Rarely anything can phase you. That's like up here when you're like the monk sitting on the mountain. You know, you have that faith, and you have that, you know, like I said, discernment at the end of the day of what could affect you.
It's the perfect word for that. Yeah.
Yes, that provides protection to your spirit.
For sure.
In my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. That knowing, it's like it's an intuitive knowing that's
Right.
hard to articulate, but you know it because you are it.
Right.
That also, there's no separation. Like all of this is.
Oh, connected.
Yeah, and these are examples of reality, of source making itself, different things
Right.
coming up in different ways,
Right.
different avatars, etc.
Right.
And the free will is us learning about ourselves. We're remembering we're remembering ourselves.
Right.
We all know that we're parts of God that are like a prism, and that are like a broken prism, and we're just picking up the pieces and like having different experiences.
Right.
But we know
Right.
what and who we are.
Right.
And if you don't know, now you know.
And
you
also,
know very well. Right, okay. The rest you pay for.
Right.
All right, go ahead.
And also, be aware about your feelings. Be aware of how you feel when you watch certain things. Be aware of how you feel. If you listen to something on the radio, I'm not talking about music because we did that episode, but the news or anything. Oh, COVID is spreading again. Da, 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 da. Be aware of what you listen to, and be aware of how it makes you feel. If something don't make you feel right, if something brings up anxiety or emotions that you don't want to come up, cut it off. Cut it off. Cut it off. Cleanse everything. And I'm talking about everything. If you got to go through your phone and cleanse your contacts, do that too. Because you got to be aware of what makes you feel good, and that actually is a part of spiritual warfare, because spiritual war can come in the form of a demon.
I was thinking that
come
as
on,
well.
come on.
In the form of one demon, I can name about 7. I won't, because I'm a lady, but I can. But well, you know, the truth is true all the time. But I will say though, there's a common when you have 7 or so such incidents, there's a common denominator besides yourself, and you know, there's that presents a lot of inner work and shadow work and all that.
Right.
And I'm in the midst of that, and I don't think I don't think I'll ever finish with that. It's an ongoing learning experience. Right. But the common denominator was, because I was thinking about this, it wasn't necessarily bullying. It was gaslighting, and that's spiritual warfare too.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if they gaslight themselves. And then I was watching Amanda Seales, and she was saying narcissism. There's a difference between narcissism and narcissist. Like everyone can have. Some people can
a little bit of narcissism
exhibit some traits,
right.
But you're a narcissist when you fit like 4/5
right.
of the and you live it,
right.
and then you don't know it.
Right.
So I'm like, just philosophically, I feel like gaslighters gaslight themselves. Because they're gaslighting their victims, but I feel like they gaslight themselves into thinking their victims are stupid or soft because they're empathic or. Because they have light or whatever reason. Because I hope I'm not one, but I could probably check off a couple of things. But
right, I feel like narcissism isn't everyone, like I said. But in order to become a narcissist, like you said, you have to have more than 3-4 traits.
Yeah, like most of them. most of them. Yeah, but a gaslighter, I feel like gaslighters. Do you think
that's a different topic, because we could go on a whole another episode with that.
We can.
I don't want to figure it out or what goes on in their minds, but I feel like they don't gaslight themselves. I feel like, for me, I feel like
thinking that their victims are stupid. Took me a minute though.
Thinking that their victims is a part of the game. I feel like that's what they do to have people on their side. But I don't feel like they gaslight themselves. I feel like they know what they're doing. And they're very well.
They know their mission.
They have tactic. They're tactical creatures and strategic. So
then you be strategic right back. In your own self-defense. First of all, I feel like you just gotta focus on your own life.
Right.
Right. And the more I focused on myself, the stronger I got, and I wasn't ever a punk. If you're black and you present as gay and you're mid-30s, you can say a number of things, and I've heard them all, but you can't say weak and unresilient and soft and all that shit. You can't say any of those things. But my original point was just that the underlying point. That's a profound weakness that you, and this is warfare. It's relevant. It's spiritual warfare to take. It's usually trauma, first of all, that they're dealing with. To take your trauma and try to distract someone else and accuse them, and then make them feel like their reality is not their own because of your inability or unwillingness to deal with your own trauma. That's some weak, goofy shit. And that's spiritual warfare too. Yeah. Like that takes a lot of spiritual healing. So I feel like to safeguard yourself, try to, when you're in a meditative state anyway, however you do it, you know yourself, and like I said originally, when you know your own shit versus what everyone else's stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, are these my feelings, or is this what someone else is trying to project onto me?
Right.
And then not taking that on.
Right.
I just wanted to.
No, I like how you tied it back into the topic, which is staying grounded and mindful of your surroundings as well regarding people, because, like we said, it can be a spiritual war in your own community. It doesn't have to be worldwide or
form.
Media spread.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that. It can be in your own community, in your own family, in your own circle. Let's put it even smaller. In your own circle, it can be spiritual warfare that you have to deal with. So that's definitely a great example.
And
I like
in your
that
own
you bring
head.
that up.
I feel like I've experienced
yourself can bring war on yourself too.
I've been paranoid.
Absolutely.
I might be a little paranoid still, but that's my business. Yeah, but it's an ongoing thing with all of these. It's wherever energy flows, and that's pretty much everything.
Right.
So.
Definitely. And I am personally. was like that as well, in the same corner as you, like dealing with your own thoughts and dealing with your own things. And I seeked out to get a therapist, a person of color.
That's
to
another one, yeah.
Not that I have nothing against, other races, therapists or whatever.
No,
but
you
it's
don't
just
want
like
to explain
more
something. That's something else to explain.
Right,
you
right.
at least
And
want to have that
had
similar experience.
Other therapists that was not people of color, and they couldn't relate to certain things that I
shouldn't have to explain.
Right.
Or justify. Right.
Once I got into therapy, it's shedding a light on things that I didn't even know was there. And not in a bad way, in a good way, So I feel like everybody, at least majority of us, should see a therapist at least one time in your life.
I think everybody
can benefit from it. And it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It doesn't mean you have a mental illness.
On
It
the
doesn't
contrary.
mean, it's
right that you're seeking to stay right.
Exactly.
and
because
to
it doesn't
get more
have
right.
to really be counseling. It could be leveling up your mental, in a sense. There's certain things that you pushed away subconsciously can come to the light. You could deal with it so you can level up in your consciousness. So it's definitely a must and a plus in your life.
It is, and we appreciate the difficulty, because I am no stranger to therapists. Like, just as many bullies or narcissists, whatever I said, the gaslighters. I've had about 7 of them. I've had 7 or more therapists as well.
When you keep saying that, I keep thinking the 7 deadly sins.
There's a reason I said 7, but I think I counted them out, and it was 7. I think it was 7, and I'm like, ooh, that is not coincidental.
I'm so done.
Everything has meaning. But I did have 7 or so therapists, like back, especially in my youth, and I acknowledge, and I'm sure you do too, that when you find chemistry and compatibility are key, and you don't know that though until you in a sense re-traumatize or recall your trauma to these people, and then after when you're in the midst of recalling it might not work out, and so it's exhausting to go from one to the other. In hopes of not, in hopes of it having to, and in hopes of it working for you. It's exhausting to have the trial and error. Hopefully, the first one's the best one, but I've been there, so I know the last one's your last one because it works, because he or she or they work, But I would just say we appreciate that too. But if it is worth the effort. Once you get to the person that you need, it might not even be in the form of a person, but any way to objectively see yourself and dig deep, and then also maintain and keep yourself aware. Be self-conscious and aware is what I'm trying to say. What is yours versus what is, and everything is also connected. And both of those things are true at the same time, even though they sound like contradictions. Like, everything is one, and everything's interconnected and interrelated, but also what is specifically you, if that makes sense, and what is not. And maintaining that.
Yeah, and that concludes our episode. It was a good episode today.
That was vigorous, right?
Yeah,
I like that. There was vigor.
Yes. Vigor. That.
Vigor. Slim shake.
Stop it.
Look for new music to come. All right, now. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Let us know in the comments if you appreciate this, if you want us to expand on something, if you want us to talk about something else.
And you can follow us on IG.
Yes, hush_podcast on IG. You can't say it enough.
Right.
There's no such thing as shameless plug anymore.
Right. And it will be in the description box below as well.
Absolutely.
So definitely go follow us. Any recommendations, any requests, please let us know. We are open to it.
Absolutely.
As long as it's useful.
Yes, meaningful. Criteria. Thank you so much. Meaningful
Thank you,
criteria.
guys.
Thank you. Peace.